listening to Pop This, the podcast where three women talk about pop culture. Here are your hosts, Lisa Christiansen, Andrea Gin, and Andrea Warner.
Well, I'm very excited to report that there is a new fashion trend, and it comes from our favorite person. Okay, maybe not our favorite person, but mine, one of mine maybe. It comes from Nancy Meyers, and I don't know if you've noticed this on TikTok, and all the different style blogs writing about it. It's called the coastal grandmother look.
I have heard about coastal grandma, yeah.
I haven't. Tell me about it.
Oh, it's exactly what you would think. It's
Coastal grandmother is like one of Nancy Meyers' characters. So she looks a bit like Meryl Streep or Diane Keaton, khaki pants, white button up, and a bucket hat usually. And,
could be white khakis too on
could
the
be
pants,
white
by the way.
khakis, yeah.
It's not always a khaki color or a beige color. Yeah.
But generally, it is try to imagine whatever Diane Keaton would be putting on, and there's something's got to give. That's the one, right?
Yep,
yeah,
yep.
Exactly. And Anne Hathaway posed in a picture in the khakis and the white shirt. She said, "I have been living for this moment my whole life."
I mean, honestly, I love it. I think it's great. It's basically like, like we didn't love what the Gilmore Girls reboot was, like the revisiting, but basically like every outfit Emily wore once she in her post Richard life
or whatever,
when she moved to Maine, that was a coastal grandma look as well. Like
But wait, like, are people wearing this look for real now?
Yeah, yes. And that's the fun part, is it doesn't really have anything to do with the grandma part. It has to do with a lot of, if I'm reading it correctly in the overthinking think pieces that I've read about coastal grandmother.
Wait, how many are you up to? Like 6, 10?
Yeah, there's been three
Okay.
good ones.
Okay.
But it has more to do with an aspirational millennial, like, I own a home now. I've accomplished all of these things. I'm just hanging out with my friends and having wine now. It's just, I've given up, and this is what I'm doing.
Well, I remember in maybe it's the 2000s, maybe it was the early 2010s, but like every time we would go to Portland, people would be like, "Oh, you mean where all the 30-year-olds are retired?" And it was because there were like so many like weird evening clubs that just like were grown adults who were obviously, sort of like really easing into an easy life. They weren't going to clubs. They were bringing their bridge games and their board games, and they would just sit for the evening with their friends. And like, it was just like seriously a very hipster retirement village was the vibe for Portland during a very specific time. And I think I feel like coastal grandma is sort of like the chicer, like stylistic element of that. Like it's just like it's if you have a little bit of savings, whereas if you're a hipster retiree in Portland, you don't have a lot of savings necessarily. You're still wearing maybe some old trucker hats. Coastal grandma, she's got some savings.
She's got some savings. She's got some friends. She's got a pashmina waiting in the car.
She can eat food without dropping it on herself.
So Lisa, are you gonna adapt this look?
No,
for yourself?
No, I've got my look. There was no stripes involved in the coastal grandmother look. And,
I was gonna say, you can't give up your stripes.
I would never. As I speak, you see me in my stripes right now. Because if you like to go to your celeb blogs, having to see all of the boho chic at Coachella, I think that, it was like a good palate cleanser to read about the coastal grandmother look. And in my fantasy, if the look,
I like it. It
Yeah.
sounds comfortable.
yeah, it is very
Oh,
comfortable.
AG, you are gonna turn to this. For
I
sure.
know. Thanks for alerting me to it. I'm gonna
thing-
look it up.
She
But the
shows
thing
up in
is,
a
like-
bucket hat next week.
but the thing of AG loves a bold pattern. That's the one drawback. So like I feel like you are gonna sort of maybe like alternate between your like 70s moo style and the coastal grandma. I feel like these are two looks that you could really hardcore steer into.
Yeah. I mean, I've never looked good in chinos, but I'm willing to give it another try.
I think
So-
you got to balance it out with that with that white smocky shirt at the top, which I can see you in, and I think that would be a fantastic look.
I've been following Diane Keaton as a fashion icon for a very long time. There's no reason, not to do coastal grandmother.
Yeah.
It's time. It's time for all of us. And as I said, I'm just looking forward to that day where it really, really takes off, and suddenly you show up, as you were saying, at a hipster bar in Portland, and it's just the doors open and the coastal grandmothers make their way
Just
into the bar.
Literally swanning in. Yeah.
In Maine, in Portland, Maine, I think that is actually what happens.
You just
Yeah,
moved
you
there
were
and
in
you
Maine.
just
You had time there, yeah.
Yeah, I can totally see it.
you cross
Yeah,
the
totally see
border, and instead of fruit stands, they have khaki stands, and you just sort of pull up, grab your slacks.
You know what? You know where you can buy all the coastal grandma clothes is at a gardening center that has like a boutique in it.
Yeah,
Have you ever
yeah.
been to one of those giant
No, I
ones?
didn't even know those existed, but I'm already intrigued.
It's got like, all your gardening supplies, and then it's got like this indoor. I've noticed that like the really, really big ones, like I've been to one in Langley that has an indoor space that's got like a clothing boutique in it. And it's all clothes that you could kind of wear gardening or lounging on your patio for women only.
A good smock with some pockets, I think, is what we're all looking for,
Yeah, everything there's like flowy
Yeah.
and nice floral patterns on it. Floppy hats.
The floppy hat
It's,
seems to be the most one of the most important parts of this particular ensemble. I think.
Yeah.
I mean, I gotta say, haven't we all been thinking about retirement in this moment, especially after watching what we just watched?
Oh,
Like,
boy.
is this not a top of mind, like critical? Like, maybe this is why we're all sort of thinking about coastal grandmother as a look, because it is the exact opposite of what we've just spent a lot of time with.
That is a brilliant segue.
It's a good theory.
And it was very, very organic. I have to say, this coastal grandma applauds you.
I'm Andrea Warner,
I'm Lisa Christiansen.
I'm Andrea Gin.
and you're listening to Pop This. And I mean, we're talking about Severance.
Because everybody else is.
Honestly, and I understand why.
Mm-hmm.
It is.
It
I will-
really hits you in the gut.
Oh, yeah.
At this time
and
of the
it's-
Great Resignation, it couldn't have oddly come out at a more opportune time.
Both the Great Resignation and the Great Reintegration, as people sort of face going back to work or just leaving work entirely. And we deal with the pandemic, and we deal with the sort of like increasingly our work trying to sort of remind us, you're all family here. You must be together to really feel that family vibe. Severance hit me hard, guys. I love it so much.
I know. It was one of those shows where you're watching it and there's like a little miniature you running around in circles in your head screaming.
Screaming the whole time.
Screaming.
I think the reason I like it too is that it builds on you. At first, it just seems, well, this is dumb, and then by the end, you're, oh my gosh, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
oh my gosh.
Like honestly, that
Yeah.
it's The finale did not disappoint me. I can't wait for season 2. The finale set up everything I've ever wanted. And we're going to spoil the hell out of this series. I'm so sorry, listeners. If you haven't watched it, maybe
Hit
stop
pause
right
on
now. Hit pause. Go watch it all. Come back. Take care of yourselves while you do the watching. Because I think it's very smart that this show did not come out in sort of like all at once. That you had to watch it week by week. It was helpful.
Especially if you have to, like, if you work for a big corporation in an office. In a building that may be like mostly cement with very few windows, it might be really cutting close to the bone.
We started it late, so we were able to like binge a few episodes at a time, and I know that if we had just waited, I would have watched like all 9 or 10 or whatever, however many episodes there are. Can't remember.
I think it was 9, wasn't it?
9.
Yeah.
9.
I would have just like watched all 9 over the course of 2 days, and really, you know how like they talk about like you're sort of pulling a real method actor vibe if you just go too deep into something. That would have been me if I had watched all this in 2 days. Like I would have been spinning out of control. You guys probably would have had to report me somewhere. Like it's.
Well, I mean, I think it just hits people who have to go to office jobs like so much more, because my husband, like Joe, for instance, he teaches. And so like he's just, like he doesn't have that, he wasn't as sort of like moved by the show as much as me, because he's like not going into an office every day.
Doesn't
working.
sit in an actual cubicle.
Exactly. He doesn't sort of have like dystopian office horror trauma. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, I love it so much. Okay, well, we should let's give a little background, little synopsis, and then just dive right in. So I'm just going to nominate myself to read the background. Okay. Severance is an American science fiction psychological thriller streaming television series created by Dan Erickson and directed by Ben Stiller and Aoife McCardle. It stars Adam Scott, Zach Cherry, Britt Lower, Tremel Tillman, Jen Tulloch, Deechin Lachman, Michael Chamis, John Turturro, Christopher Walken, and Patricia Arquette. What a stacked cast of hotties that is. The plot follows Mark, an employee of Lumen Industries, who agrees to a severance program in which his non-work memories are separated from his work memories. The series premiered on Apple TV Plus, February 2022. Universal acclaim from critics who praised its story and performances. In April 2022, the series was renewed for a second season. That's from Wikipedia.
Yeah, now I'll take on the synopsis. In Severance, Mark Scout, played by Adam Scott, leads a team of Lumen Industries whose employees have undergone a severance procedure which surgically divides their memories between their work and personal lives. The daring experiment in work-life balance is called into question as Mark finds himself at the center of an unraveling mystery that will force him to confront the true nature of his work, ... and himself.
So, like, we can all agree that, like, kind of in principle, the idea of severance, maybe not so bad. Like, depending on what your job is. If you love your job and you want to be able to remember it, great. Or if you love your personal life and you want to be able to remember it, great. But, like, the idea of sort of this separation between work and, like, the work-life balance is so much in question all the time, right? Like,
yeah,
there is a kernel there that seems, I can understand why it might appeal.
Exactly. Like, I think I was telling you both when we decided to watch this show, like the idea of, maybe this is a slightly different idea, but building like a robot version of yourself that you could just like send to work every day to like log in the time at your office and then come home. Like that doesn't sound like the worst idea.
No, I agree. When I first heard about it, it seemed like that would be handy. I mean, you wouldn't bore people at dinner parties with your work stories, which are always like. And then Kate in accounting came up, and she was all, I thought you were going to fix this file, and I was, no, I'm pretty sure Bob said for you to fix this file, so we could avoid all of that. However, as we learned from Severance, you'll still probably end up being at a boring dinner party no matter what.
And also probably like if people need you to not have memories of what you do at your work, you're probably doing weird shady stuff. And like there's some big ethical questions.
There are.
There.
And here's the thing that haunted me the most about the show. So the language I'm going to assume everyone who has listened this far has already watched it, or at least has watched a couple of episodes, since we said we were going to spoil it. But you have your innie and your outie.
It's so gross.
And it's not a belly button.
I know.
It's your innie at work and your outie is in the world. And after a while, I started wondering, well, which is the real you? Is it the innie or is it the outie?
Great question.
Yeah.
I think that is going to be maybe one of the driving forces of the second season.
Yeah. And it was really striking too that like while the innie world is a horror show for sure, the outie world is also very grim.
Oh, so grim.
On the show.
Well,
Yeah.
that and the fact that our characters are dealing with lots of issues, and that's why they chose to go through the severance process.
Yeah, but also the world in which they live, like the people they're interacting with, the places that they physically live in, the stuff that they do outside of work. It's not like they're taking advantage. Like Adam is not living it up once his outie gets free. Like he's going home to a sort of empty row housing where he's an occupant alongside his Mrs. Selvig, and like watching TV in the dark, it seems, most nights.
Drinking alone.
Yeah.
Or having to hang out with his insufferable brother-in-law.
Yeah.
Or going on awkward dates with your sister's midwife.
Doula. Yeah.
Or doula. Yeah.
It is. Like the idea that he's grieving, obviously, the death of his wife, in so much as he knows that, that's his understanding of what's happening. But like, I have so many questions about where this show is set and when it is set.
Yeah, because they're all
like,
using flip phones.
Well, I just figured that maybe had to do with the control that Lumen wants to exert. Like, and this whole town seems in its own way to be sort of in service of Lumen. Because like the housing that they're in obviously is corporate housing, and the company owns it and is very like manufactured and, sort of those designed suburbs or whatever. The building itself is wild. Like we could spend 7 years talking about like the building itself, and we only get glimpses of what the town life is like. So we see Mark's sister and his brother-in-law, like their home seems to be kind of like a little bit in the woods. It's quite beautiful.
Really beautiful.
Yeah, we don't know what she does. He's some kind of wild self-help idiot. And their friends are all wild as well, because like they think it's rude that they're going to introduce the baby at his book launch in their own home. She just gave birth to a human, and the friends are like, "Are you sure tonight's the right night?"
See, now can I throw
Wild.
in a theory?
Yeah.
It'll be my own personal fan theory.
I
So, AG introduced this in the outline, saying how were we surprised to see that there were people using the severance process not just for work, but we see quite possibly a woman has done this so she can avoid childbirth. And I am, with the awkwardness of many of these people, I'm wondering if they're sending people to parties that aren't really themselves.
Oh, you think they're like everyone has a severed other?
Everyone has a severed other, and you can send them to certain things. I don't know how you get them to come home if you have a timer on them, but That's going to
Great
be my
question.
theory as to why everybody is.
When you worked out when the rich pregnant woman was severed, when you worked that out in your head while you're watching, did like you have an extra layer of screaming happening in your head? Because that happened to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I mean, I knew something was weird when she went over to visit during the birthing thing. Like it didn't feel good. I was just like, is this woman gonna have her baby stolen? Like I wasn't sure where it was gonna go. And so I already felt weird. I wasn't hugely surprised when we ultimately realized that she has her own severance going on. I'll tell you, like, one of the strange points where I was a bit, this sounds wild, but like it is winter in this town.
Very winter.
This
Maybe ever winter.
Yeah,
Mark
yeah.
Mark and this doula go to an outdoor punk show in an alley that's just
Looks like Berlin.
yeah. How like, and all of these punks are sort of like leading the resistance, I guess, sort of about like criticizing Lumen and cool, like that's awesome, great job, guys. But like it's just in an alley and it's outdoors and it's probably minus 20. And this to me seemed, this is the point where I was just like, what is going on in this town? I don't understand. Everyone here, is this all going to be like a weird Pleasantville / like
Handmaid's Tale,
Truman Show / Handmaid's? Yeah, what's going on? Something's happening here.
That's what I thought when you kind of like work out that this politician's wife is like severed so she can have more children, and like the ramifications of what that means in terms of what they're planning.
Sure. Yeah.
20 and
for
counting.
the rest of people. Yeah.
God. It's all very creepy.
Yeah, and like the show isn't just a critique of like office work and work-life balance and capitalism, but it's also like we spend a lot of time with Adam's sister and Rickon,
Yeah.
her husband, and just like
Rickon.
kind of a satirized version of parenting, right? Like they are just so many things that they're like when he talks about how he's making the sheets for his son's bed or their future baby's bed, and they've placed like multiple beds in the room so the baby doesn't have to suffer from moving from bed to bed as it's growing bigger.
Or during the labor.
That is
Do you want to?
that is just a perfect skewering of like
Yeah. Do you want to help me hang the seaweed?
Yeah, exactly.
The seaweed.
Just a perfect like skewering of like all the wild parenting thoughts and ideas that we hear today. And it's just like while you're watching it, you're not even half surprised if like something like that really exists. Some ideas like that are out there.
But, like, that's the thing of the whole show. Like we are kind of so deep in our own conspiracy dystopia that like the show it makes more and more sense the weirder it gets. Because you're like, yeah, okay, sure.
Well, and we have those two competing like Scientology religion gurus going on as well, right? We have the founder of Lumen, and we have Rickon, whose book shows up in the any world, which really confuses everyone to no
Can you
end.
imagine Rickon's book empowers the innies to really rise up? Like, what a wild, and the continued misunderstanding and misappropriation that Rickon writes throughout the book. Oh my God, there are moments where I was laughing so hard.
Oh, I know. That must have been so much fun to write a fake self-help book. I could not. Camera. The word camera means groups of people. What?
But that's why I am so curious about, like, is this just like is this just like an alternate reality? Am I thinking about this like in a way that I don't need to, or is this like set in a time and place that is going to make more sense to us next season. Like, because it does obviously have like a built-in critique of sort of Silicon Valley. It has like, you know, honestly, like I have a lot of questions because Mark's sister seems smart, but she's married to Rickon and puts up with all of his nonsense and is literally having his baby. But she seems too aware to be severed, so I don't imagine that she is severed. And I don't know how Rickon could be anything but an outie because he is all out. There's nothing.
Yeah, no, there's nothing. No.
Like his innie would be so different. Anyway, I don't know. Oh God. And I just really hate the fact that I now use the terms outie and innie with so much confidence.
Yeah, we'll just start applying it to our own lives when we go back to work.
Truly. I just like, I don't know. I also like, there's obviously a lot of darkness in the show, but there is a lot of funniness. There's also just so much weirdness that I really appreciated. Like, I feel like it has been a while since a show really gripped me so hard. And the major turn for me, like, comes a bit later. Like, I mean, I was super into it anyways, but like once we got to episode 7, no, maybe episode 6 even, I guess it was Hallie's attempt to take her innie's life, is a very provocative and disturbing sort of scene. But then when we get to episode 7 and the dance music experience.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Honestly, that is one of the most brilliant one of the most brilliant secrets. Like,
Okay, I have a question.
I pulled up a piece from Vulture about how the whole sequence was filmed and made and what went into it. I love so much Tramell Tillman's performance as Milchek. Like, and that dance sequence is what really solidified it for me.
I have a question.
Yeah.
When we go back to work, will we be able to ever take seriously, parties or perks or anything like that
No,
you get from the corporation?
Felt that way already.
Like, Helly is so resistant to it from the get-go. And I love that sort of spirit that she brings. And when she I don't know, I think it's like the second or third episode where she basically, like, Mark is like, we're all a family. And she was like, I would rather slit my wrist than ever be your family, or something to that effect. Like, she just shuts it down so beautifully. And I really admired that. Like, because I know that, like, I understand corporate cultures. It is important for people to feel good about teamwork, right? Like, I understand that it's good for you personally to feel good about where you work. So I understand the investment that goes into that. But just because I think television reaffirms this all the time, is that you are supposed to think of your work as family, but all that does is like further death capitalism. So it's not a good correlation. Like, that's not healthy.
Well, it does make you think about watching The Office and Parks and Rec, doesn't it?
Totally.
I mean, with Adam Scott being in both, which is a fascinating crossover for him. But that, these work people become your entire family. Like, that's it for them. We don't see them with other people. That's their life.
Think of how many episodes of different, like, workplace sitcom things where only the 7 people you work with attend your wedding.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's...
Yeah, like on Superstore. That's what happened, basically. Because it's like, you spend 8 hours a day with these people 5 days a week, and that ends up being, more time than you spend with most people in your lives.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so I get it, but like, we've also then created an entertainment culture that reinforces this notion that this is normal. And so I love Severance challenging us in that space so beautifully and so perfectly. And I really, really appreciate that. Like,
see, now it's really the question I had about the innie and the outie, which is more real. The most like there's such a contrast when we see the outie versions of like John Turturro and Helly. It is so stark. I mean, sorry, Mark, you're not that different.
Mark's not that different.
Mark's not that different. But there's John Turturro painting this endless painting, listening to Motorhead, which is wild in and of itself. But, you know, he's so different. He looks different. His body language is different. Everything. Yep. And then we see Helly, and she's obviously completely different. So who is the real you? The innie, the outie? That is my big question. Also, I just wanted to point out when we were discussing the great tropes they have, is that the place that you're punished is the break room.
Yeah, because like they're gonna break you.
Yeah,
it's so terrible. And just that repetitive, like you have to say it until you mean it, and the speech that they have to say about, like, oh my god, that speech is so wildly over the top. Like the writers of this show.
And then getting sent to therapy.
Oh my god!
And then having your ego fluffed every once in a while too. That one really got me.
You send letters to friends.
You take care of children.
Oh my god, I think Deachin is doing an incredible job. So the other thing that I was kind of fascinated by, because I watched Dollhouse, which this show has sort of talked about, or critics have talked about a little bit, that this is just like higher class Dollhouse in some ways, and in some ways like yes, did either of you watch Dollhouse?
No.
Okay, so it was a Joss Whedon show. Take of that what you will, understanding what we understand about Joss Whedon, but in it's a bunch of men and women who are kept in a kind of like a sleeper state, and then are loaded with the personalities that are requested of the people who buy a night with them. So it's, a lot of like different personalities doing sex work and assassin work. It's mostly all like killing and having sex with people. That's most of the jobs that like these people are people are sort of doing. And then there are a lot of ethical questions, and then there's like a mystery about like who, what is really going on in the controlling factor of the dollhouse, and the dolls sort of start to wake up when they shouldn't be waking up and stuff like that. So there is like some overlap here. And so Deachin was also in Dollhouse, and it's kind of, I haven't seen Dollhouse in forever, and I don't know that I'll necessarily go back, but I remember her, and she was so good in it. And to see her in this role, and then to like have the big reveal, like in the end. Cause like I had noticed that there was some like weird stuff between her and Mark. Like, remember when they pass each other in the hallway?
And they're going to the break room?
Yeah, she's coming out of the break room after she's been punished, and he's going in, and they're I love the way this is shot as well. Mm-hmm. But like they leave this tiny amount of space between them, but they both are kind of like seeing each other in a way that indicates some kind of like bone level recognition, like, or something deeper than whatever's happening in this moment. And then when we find out that it looks like she is the deceased wife that he has been grieving, that everyone else thinks is dead, because apparently like he and his wife and his sister and brother-in-law, the four of them hung out all the time and like had such a good time together. Like I honestly also can't imagine that life. Like I don't even how can you have a good time with Rickon? I don't know.
He's a warm person.
He's a turtleneck guy.
Yeah.
He's a warm turtleneck guy, but like he's also the kind of person who I feel would spend a lot of time just being like, yeah, but have we really made space for like thinking about what I've said? Like he would want too much praise.
Mr. Passive Aggressive for sure.
Yes. Yeah, it's too much.
Yeah.
But anyway, I really, it's a small performance. It's not like the hugest role in this first year, but like, I think the role will grow in the second year. And I think she does a really great job.
There's so many great performances. Like
we haven't even talked about Patricia Arquette yet.
Patricia Arquette or Christopher Walken.
Oh, Christopher Walken. No, that's great. They're on. Yeah.
No, there's not a weak link.
No,
in the entire
everyone.
show.
everyone is so good, and that is kind of extraordinary. Like, and a real mix of like sort of names and like people we're just sort of getting to know, and like it's really, yeah, I love the falling in love between John Turturro and Christopher Walken.
Oh, yeah.
When they tenderly hold hands and he says, "Is this okay?" I love me a consent-based romance, and this has all the hallmarks of just such tentativeness, such tenderness. I love sort of like older people finding love with each other. We don't see a lot of that necessarily on television. I understand that this may not be what happens in their outies life, but their innies find each other, and that's nice.
Well, except for until he's gone. No, he's retired. That seems to come very abruptly for a lot of people.
Yeah, do you think retired just means we're going to kill you?
I don't.
Yes. Clearly.
But Christopher
Clearly it does.
Walken's not. You mean, do they kill your innie or your outie or both? You mean?
I think.
Well, I mean, they don't have to really kill the innie. I guess they can just never activate him again, because he's only activated when he goes in the elevator, right?
Like, yeah, the innie definitely is dead.
Yeah, because we see him at home, didn't we? At the end.
Yeah, he's at home. He's not dead in the real world, because we see him with his.
But the innie, as that person exists as a separate entity, is gone.
Unless they break into the break room and then flip the switch, and then they can reactivate the innie.
What I also, another kind of, I liked Adam and Petey's unfolding friendship, like figuring out their best friendship. And, like in the midst of this exhausting scene where, Irving is telling them the sort of company policies around changing out team photos on everybody's house.
Oh my God.
Which is so real to me.
Yeah.
That is so real.
The minutia of like performative adherence is wild.
And then just finding out that Petey had left like a hand-drawn map on the back of the photo, and, all that kind of stuff is just like, like the one thing at work that sort of makes it good is having a friend at work that you like can trust and that you're actually real friends with.
Yeah.
And just this idea that he's like learning about, his outie has to learn about Petey and has to learn about, how they were best friends, and has to figure it out and has to just learn to trust Petey.
Yeah.
To me, is just like it's a really good part of the show too.
Yeah, I love that. I love that a lot. And it's because, and I'm sad that we don't get to spend more time with Petey. Like, that's kind of a loss,
Yeah.
Especially after we learn that his great fondness for Metallica. Did you both pick up on Metallica and Motorhead being the music that you hear? That was very, very specific.
It's the music of the rebellion. Like, if you have in Severance, in the world of Severance, if you have any kind of like opposition to Lumen on any level, you are into metal and punk.
Yeah, well, that doesn't, stray too far from the norm, really.
Not a surprise.
No.
I love it, and I love it. It's one of those sort of like, it's almost the tropiest of the, like, because they defy a lot of tropes, but that's almost like the tropiest thing.
Yeah, I have to say, it's a bit on the nose, and that's okay. I'm all right with that.
Except when the defiant jazz sequence, like,
the
honestly,
defiant jazz.
I'm sorry, I'm going back to the dance sequence, but
everybody has talked about it so much.
I could watch it again and again and again and again. I love it. And I really do love, like, I'll send you both the link to if you want to, like, how they created the defiant jazz sequence, because it's interesting.
Send it. I'll post it in the notes.
Okay. Yeah, it's just super fun. And they point out that, like, at the end, after so obviously, Dylan attacks Milchek and bites a chunk out of his arm, but at the end, like, it's the the four of them, it's like Irving, Mark, Dylan, and Helly all kind of huddled together, touching each other. And they point out, like, oh, they just became a team in this moment. Like, born of blood, they finally found their team. And it's just, and it's an incredible sequence. Plus, like, the dance, like, menacing dance, like, behind Dylan. Like, the other dance is all just, like, pretty cool and fun and super interesting. And the amount of time that Trammell spent working on those dances on his own at home and then choreographing things, incredible.
And you can tell it was all worth it. It was every second of that was completely satisfying to watch. It was freakish. It was wild.
Disturbing.
It was disturbing. It was, yeah.
It was also like a tiny bit fun though, no? No? Oh, okay.
No.
I love a dance sequence, so I found that fun.
I'm really actually enjoying Zach Cherry's performance as Dylan.
Yeah, he's great.
Mm-hmm.
Just like the whole character is so hilarious to me, the way he comes up with like different scenarios of what their outies are doing, like while they're working. Cause like there's a someone like that in every group who is the person coming up with like sort of conspiracy theories about like what could possibly, like what their work is doing and what they're doing and what their outies are and what he thinks his life is like outside, and just constantly thinks about that.
And then he turns out to be the hero.
Yes.
I love it. I just, I mean.
And that intrusion, I think the fact that you touched on it, that they can creep into your outie life too. Is so much like about getting an email from work or a phone call or can you come in early or, that kind of stuff. That was really, really smart. Even though, no, we support home work balance, but we might call. Just keep the phone on.
Yeah. But so like when I watched the first episode of the show, it was just, it feels different than other shows on TV, like very different in tone and very different in spirit. And I was like, this is really like episode 1 is so dark. It's so depressing and it's so just very cynical. And I now reflect and realize that it's just like, oh yeah, it's just Gen X. It's just so Gen X. And and then, like when you realize that Ben Stiller directed, most of the episodes, and it's just like, okay, like this makes a lot of sense because this is like a Gen X production, basically. Because it's like
they've taken the best years of my life, man.
Yeah.
It's just reality bites too. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. I was actually thinking about how this is absolutely like Ben Stiller's character in Reality Bites ends up like developing Severance.
But didn't he direct Reality Bites and star in it too?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like,
I see.
This is part of his ongoing cinematic universe.
Yeah, it's just a personal pet project for his whole life.
I am fascinated by it because I you remember when Ben Stiller was on Friends and was like really like had that dark side. He was dating Rachel, but he had secretly this like weird dark side that only came out around Ross. And Ross, everyone was accusing Ross of like being like, you're just jealous. It's because he's with Rachel. Like, stop being a weird psycho ex or whatever. But then like they finally saw Ben Stiller lose his crap on the duck that like pooped in his hand.
Oh yeah,
Like he's screaming at like the chickie or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
This is absolutely like when we get to sort of really see and observe the combination of like humorous rage that is the undercurrent of this series. I feel like that is channeled from Ben Stiller's performance. Like he has been able to carry that with him for the last 25 years.
It feels like the culmination of his career body of work.
Yeah.
I think you've nailed it, and I didn't even think about that. And now I'm having like a Sixth Sense moment where I'm piecing it all together going, wait, what? No, yeah, oh my God, yeah. You're right. This has just been Ben Stiller all along.
Yeah, because I feel like, Gen X, like and in the 90s, is like had these attitudes towards work in working in an office.
Yeah,
and,
like Douglas Copeland's
work-life balance.
microsurfs and things, right?
Exactly.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And it just
Yeah.
kind of receded over the last, 20 years. And now Severance is bringing it back. It's bringing back Gen X 90s.
Work dystopias.
I mean,
and
honestly-
what about Office Space?
Well, Office Space too, but also like, I mean, a Gen X vibe is very much what Yellow Jackets is. That's not just the soundtrack. Like that has a real Gen X vibe. Like that whole show.
Yeah.
Well, that's what they
Just
are.
like Dark and
aren't they?
Cynical's back, everybody.
Dark and Cynical is back. Honestly, I know that I apparently live in the 2 years between Gen X and Millennial, but obviously I'm much more Gen X. But like my ridiculous blend of optimism and cynicism feels very alive in this show. Like I feel very seen.
I don't feel that the interesting thing about this show is there's no real, there's nothing. I mean, I was trying to say there's nothing good, and there's probably one good thing is that he kind of is finding out his wife isn't dead. But gee, that's got to be a real matzo ball, hey?
I can't even imagine where they're going with that. No,
No.
but what's like speaks to me about the optimism is that these people who are supposedly completely disconnected on their innie selves have an interiority that cannot be denied because like humankind just can't be turned off. So like weirdly that's my optimism.
Is that your Jeff Goldblum in Jurassic Park?
Yeah.
Yeah. Nature finds a
humanity
way.
finds a way.
Yeah.
Nature finds a way.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, that's my takeaway from Severance is nature finds a way. You know what? We haven't even talked about the goats.
Well, there's not really a lot to say about the goats, is there?
But I mean, I was surprised when we got to a room where that security guard is just bottle feeding goats. They're not doing anything to the goats as far as we know. But it feels so sinister. And yet it's one of the most tender moments. He's just feeding and hugging baby goats.
Yeah.
They're in an office building.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like they have to bring in puppies into offices for people to play with to keep spirits up.
Do you think that's what? Do you think the
Maybe they have goat
the
playtime.
security because the security guard is so much more powerful than the data team? They get a dance party. He gets goats.
Yeah. Maybe his perk is bottle feeding
no, that's
goats.
a good theory. Yeah, you
That's
get
a
to go
great
sit in the
theory.
goat room.
Wow.
Yeah,
God.
you've achieved your numbers, which and also that futility of what they're doing, that nobody understands what they're doing. I mean, I think those of us who are watching Lumen know that there's probably just their entire work existence is just an experiment and seeing if they can sever people like this. That's what
I
it
mean,
seems like.
I got a lot of questions about all the art that's being created, and then the art
wow.
that like John Turturro's Audi is creating. Like, it's just painting the same painting that's like so dark and disturbing over and over and over again.
Well, it's that.
I mean,
yeah.
do you think that we are receiving this series differently? Like if this had come out 2 years ago before the pandemic, would we be watching it in a different way? Do you think the pandemic has had an impact on how
for
much
sure.
more cynical we feel towards work life?
Yeah, we've never had so much time to be able to be at home and realize that we like it.
Well, and I think we're also like finally like because we were told for so long the only way to do your job is to do it in a concrete tower. Mm-hmm. And it has to be open concept so you can have as much germ passing around as possible. And again, all of that's arbitrary. We know that now. And we know that like the idea that you can't do your job from home, also arbitrary. So like I really feel that we're very empowered now in a way that we, as much as it's been a limitation, and I know that not everyone has been able to stay home at all. So I understand that like it's kind of a great privilege to be able to say that we could work at home at any point in the pandemic. It's, this show Severance is going to speak to like that sort of office culture and those who experience that office culture pretty differently in a ongoing pandemic experience. Like we know better. Like, we know that, like, it's all been arbitrary kind of lies. And it's hard to sort of say, oh, so there's no need for any of this.
Yeah.
And it's actually probably detrimental to our health.
Yeah, we didn't need
Cool,
all that
cool, cool.
office space downtown. Okay.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm kind of curious to keep like watching Patricia Arquette as Harmony, like that character's trajectory, because there's like I've always been curious about, the managerial level of these kinds of corporations where people are just so committed to the corporation and what happens to them, like when do they ever wake up? Do they ever change their minds? Do they ever realize that there's no good reason that they need to be imposing these rules on people? Like I just wonder if she's going to what her path is going to look like in season 2.
She's a bit of a zealot, so I mean, that's a bit of a problem there for her.
She does have that altar at her home.
Yeah, that's nice. Everyone should have one of those.
To Kier, yeah.
To Kier.
To the god of Lumen.
That's healthy.
But she also has, we get a glimpse of sort of what she is perhaps also striving to deal with, which, I mean, and honestly, like, anyone who has experienced grief before, at different points, we do wish we could just, like, forget the grief. But, you never think about what the other side of that is, which is, like, forgetting the love. Like, that the whole reason you have grief is because you had love. And
there's a bit of eternal sunshine.
Eternal sunshine of the spotless mind. Yeah. Well, I think I know the answer to this. Does Severance pop?
Big pop. Yeah.
Yes.
But
it's also it's also very devastating and unnerving.
Like, the best kinds of art, really.
I love it so much. It pops hugely for me. It's one of my favorite things that I've watched in the last, like, few years, for sure.
Yeah, agreed with you there.
We love to end our episodes on something that we recommend, and so I will continue. I rarely go first, but I'm going to nominate myself to go first because I want to continue the trend of, like, dark and disturbing. And there is nothing like nothing like Barry for dark and disturbing. It's back for third season. It has been away for almost 3 years because of the pandemic. And this is the dark crime comedy drama
with Bill Hader
Bill Hader, Stephen Root, Sarah Goldberg, Henry Winkler, Sarah Burns, Anthony Carrigan. I love this show so much. It's about a former assassin who's, still kind of assassiny because that's just how he solves some of his problems.
But now he wants to be an actor.
But he really wants to be an actor.
I know, I love that show. Agreed.
Honestly, this show is such a good satire, I think, of actors. And just the culture of attention and crime drama. Anyway, it's great. I love it so much. It's one of my favorite shows. I've only seen the first episode, but it comes back with just a huge bang. So
awesome. Right. Yeah, I've seen I think the first season, so I have a bit of catching up to do.
Oh, season 2 is so good.
I agree. Anyway. I love it, especially that ending. Whoa.
Oh my God, season 2's ending. Wow.
Oh yeah.
So I'm going to recommend this show called Slow Horses, which is on Apple Plus. Right now, it's a spy thriller with Gary Oldman and Kristen Scott Thomas, and it's basically about. It's like a spy thriller about MI5 rejects that, like, they make mistakes in training or they screw up and they get sent to, like, spy purgatory and in this place, like, and
is
sort
it a
of
comedy?
like are given nothing to do. No, it's a thriller.
Oh, okay.
And so they're all kind of like
spy purgatory. Amazing.
Yeah, they're in spy purgatory.
Oh, I'm gonna definitely watch that. Excellent.
Yeah, it's really good. It's also dark as well. We're all on the same theme this week.
Well, my book is getting darker. I've just started it. It's called "We Are All Completely Beside Ourselves." Does anyone know that book?
It sounds dark.
Yeah, it's by
Wow.
a 2013 American novel. Karen Joy Fowler was shortlisted for the Booker Prize in 2014. Anyway, right now it's just got this really terrific protagonist, and I'm enjoying being inside her head. She's very, very funny. And there's going to be a secret in her family that she's about to embark on. And it's so far a really good read.
Cool. I love
It's funny that none of us watched, like a fun reality TV show this week or anything like that.
I started watching the latest season of Selling Sunset. I'm not going to lie to you, but I wasn't going to recommend it here.
Lots of people are talking about it. Lots of people are enjoying it.
Yeah, you can do that, but I will not recommend it here for anybody. If you come across it, you know what it is. You know why you're watching it. We don't need to talk about it. It's similar to the other show that I got myself sucked into, that Ultimatum. Oh my gosh. On Netflix.
I have not watched it at all, but I've heard about it.
Don't do it.
Okay.
Save yourself.
Do you need a palate cleanser?
I'll watch
this
Slow
thing
Horses.
Watch this thing called Old Enough. It's a Japanese thing on
yeah.
Netflix. It's only like 10 or 15 minutes per episode. And it's about small children, like toddler age, that are given tasks to do, like go to the grocery store and buy these things. And they follow them with like a camera and see like their journey from their house to the grocery store.
What's it called
so
again?
cute.
Little what?
It's called Old Enough.
Old Enough. Okay.
It's a long-running Japanese sort of reality show.
Oh,
I
I'm
guess.
going to have to. Oh, thank
Yeah.
you. There's palate
And
cleanse.
it'll totally cleanse your palate because it's so
Carlos is a big fan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm excited.
Well, thank you everyone for listening. You can hang out with us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. You could rate and review us 5 stars.
And thanks to Andrea Gin, who is our producer and co-host. And, I'd work in an office with you. Wait a second, I have. All right. Well, thanks, guys.
Thanks everyone.
Bye,
Thanks for
everyone.
listening.